Welcome in. We're getting a little personal today, and I hope that this many episodes in, you realize that I'm going to give you the real. I'm going to be shooting it straight with you on this show. And my hope is that this is a place for you to come if you listen to me and you're like, man, I've felt that way too. This journey in entrepreneurship for me has at times been a little bit lonely. And the older I get, I think I'm realizing more and more why that is. And if there's anything that I can speak to, if there's any story that I can share that makes you feel a little less that way, I want to do that. So that's what today's show is about. It's a super quickie episode. I hope that these few minutes of giving you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain in my life and specifically my brain is helpful to you. And that this is something you find yourself struggling with too, that it'll be a little bit of encouragement. Welcome to Ready, Fire, Aim. This is the show for the trailblazers, the risk takers, the storytellers, and the problem solvers, the ones in bold pursuit of their purpose and the business they were made for. I'm your host, Lacy, brand strategist and lover of sticky notes, and this is where we wrangle the chaos of entrepreneurship. Let's dive in. Welcome into episode 9. 9 episodes in. This episode is really funny and timely because the topic is going to speak a lot to why we are a few days late recording today's show. So usually we release episodes on Tuesdays. Love Tuesdays. And today's Friday. I'm coming to you from what we lovingly call Fridge Cig Fridays. Meaning fridge cigarettes. And we don't smoke real cigarettes around here, but we do drink a lot of Coke Zero. By we, I mean I. And so the next best day after a Tuesday this week felt like coming to you on a Friday. The reason that we're delayed a little bit is because I've been on a journey of really trying to get collected in my brain. There is a lot going on behind the scenes over here that I'll be sharing a lot about in the coming weeks. But I kind of hit a wall when it has come to my brain capacity. And I've shared a lot on social media recently about the fact that I am diagnosed ADHD. And I got that diagnosis when I was in college. But it's been really interesting to see that start to kind of resurface and play out, especially as I'm now 3 babies in. I've been postpartum 3 times now. And I had my youngest daughter, she's 18 months. And so I had another baby 18 months ago. I'm much older now. And I'm starting to see the effects of my ADHD in a much different way. And I thought that that was an interesting thing to bring to the show because I have to believe, not even believe, I know that there are so many others like me. I don't know that I've ever had a resource to go to of someone who I could tell struggled in the same ways that I did and then shared their experience. And so I just want to share with you what I've done, why I've done it, some of the things that kind of were the tipping point for me in coming back around to addressing this. But before I do that, I want to preface this with the fact that this is 100% not medical advice. This is just a willingness to be honest with you, and in hopes that if you too are struggling, that first and foremost, you'll just give yourself permission to consider the fact that it might not have to be this hard. And that is where I got to. So, backing up just a little bit, when I was in college, I went to take college algebra and it didn't go well. And math had never gone well for me. In high school, I was blessed enough to have a couple teachers who loved me and honestly felt sorry enough for me and would let me come to their house at night on the weeknights and sit at their kitchen table and help tutor me and really ensure that I could get through the tests, at the end of that week. And I don't know if that helped or hurt me because by the time I got to college and showed up to college algebra in class with an instructor who, was teaching to a class of whatever it was, 300 of us, They did not, in fact, care if I passed or not. So I did not the first semester, nor did I the second semester. Now, if we're being honest here, and I'm committing to honesty, the first semester was probably because I missed too much class. The second semester, I was like, oh, my parents are going to kill me. So I should probably go to class and try to figure out this whole college algebra gig. Um, and it still didn't work. So I just could not figure it out. I could not do it. And then the third semester of college algebra rolled around, and I was showing up in my instructor's office all the time saying, like, I need help. Like, I am trying here. And it's like I'm looking at a puzzle that is, someone has mixed five different puzzles together and given me a few pieces of each, and none of them are fitting together. Right. And if you are this way, if you know what I mean when I say that, then you know, right? And if that doesn't make sense to you, God bless you. I wish I was more that way. But with all that being said, he essentially was one of the people that said it shouldn't be this hard, and not in a shameful way. He just was like, hey, I'm so sorry you're struggling like this. Let's get you past this class. I'm pretty sure he slipped a note to the stats lady and said, just let this poor girl through when she gets there. Because that was hard too. But it was in between those two classes that I went and got an assessment. And not only did I fail, do you fail an ADHD diagnosis? I don't know. Whatever it was, I was diagnosed as highly ADHD. And the psychiatrist at the time, she was like, Lacy, I don't know how you've done it up until this point. And, in our generation, I think we just did what we had to do to get through. And I could use, unfortunately, like creativity or my personality, like, growing up in a smaller school with teachers who loved me and cared about me, which was a gift in some ways. But I never saw the deficits of just how badly I was struggling and just how hard things were for me until I'd gotten to this point in college. So got diagnosed, and she put me on an ADHD medicine. And at the time, it helped. Certainly, I could focus, I could do these things. And I was like, wow, people could just do this. Like, I can just sit down and read a book or make it through a study guide, and things were certainly clearer, but I didn't feel well. And I didn't like the way it made me feel. It made me completely like void of personality. I lost a lot of weight, like not in a good way, like lost my appetite completely. Just overall did not feel well on it. And so, to be honest, I took the medication for like, I think another year, as much as I needed to or really had to, just to get through the classwork. And then I stopped. It was not a long-term thing that I stayed on. And so from then on, I just muscled through it. And what's funny is, in being an entrepreneur and always working for myself, I've only ever had to abide by a structure or a schedule that I set, which I think is why my ADHD has never really come with these like blinking alarm bells like I'm experiencing now. So fast forward 15, almost 20 years now, I had my third child, and within about 6 months, it was just like the brain fog was worse than it had ever been. Postpartum, I felt great. I've had postpartum depression before, so I know the difference between the two things. But this was a brain fog and a lack of focus that I could not shake and I could not solve. And it certainly felt deeper and harder to overcome. It felt worse than it's ever been. And so, couple that with the fact that I'm now working in a business that has grown to a point where I don't have like the full autonomy over the schedule anymore. The business is at a point where the business kind of does, right? Like, there are deadlines. Like, my clients have things happening and going on, and we have a workload that I don't really get to decide anymore how I manage it. It has to be managed and it has to be kept up with. And it was in that way that I just started to feel so truly handicapped and like, man, why can I not sit at my desk for an office day and complete everything on the list? Like, that should not be that hard. And so At the same time, over the last year or so, we've been working with one of my kids in a few different ways and just like trying to optimize like how they're doing and feeling with school and focus. And a few things came out of that situation that made me just go, gosh, I wonder if that applies to me too. And if in fact, the medicine was helpful for me back in the day, but it was just way too much of it. And so I went back to a new provider and have been so grateful to go back through this process again of not only understanding that diagnosis. I'm someone who, I'm your standard millennial. I don't believe in like crutches and excuses. Gonna pull myself up by my bootstraps kind of thing and muscle through it until I'm looking at my life as a woman, as a mom, as a wife, having a home and these children and this business and these clients and these people that I care for and friends and, and the list goes on and on. And at some point in all of the last year, a light bulb just went off for me that said, what if it just didn't have to be this hard? Right? Like, what if I let myself have the permission to just consider an easier route? I think it's really interesting for those of us who are raised, maybe you were too, by a generation that like hard is good. Does that make sense? Like life is hard. Life should be hard. And I believe that there are so many difficult and hard components to life. But I just wondered if this didn't have to be quite so hard. So that was the first question that I asked myself. And if you're someone who's like suffering and struggling, but you're on the fence, like, do I get help with this? Do I consider medication? Do I go see someone? I would just ask yourself that. Like, that was a really good starting place for me to go, is this something that I could consider allowing to be easier when it comes to the focus and the streamlining my thinking and my work? And when I went to the new provider and had the appointment, I kind of shared my last experience. And it was so encouraging to hear her say, well, everything you're sharing with me means or points to the fact that you were really over medicated. Like you should not have felt those side effects to that degree or to that extreme. Why don't we just try at a much lower dose? Like that's an option for you. And it was never described or presented that way to me back in the day. So that is what I've done. And I'll tell you, I'm just so thankful and encouraged. And I was sharing with someone the other day about like some of the reasons why I've chosen to get back on medication for my ADHD. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, if you're, diagnosed and you really struggle with focus, it's probably so that you can get more done, right?" And it's actually not that. I get an extraordinary amount of things done. We are in the process of growing our team at Endeavor at a really rapid rate. All that's happening behind the scenes right now, and so excited about so many of those things. But as it stands, we generate a lot of output of effort and getting tasks done. But what I need help and relief with is the way that I do it and it not taking so long to get those things done. So that's the first thing is not just the work that I'm doing, but the way that I work. Being able to streamline my thoughts, being able to get more work done in a more streamlined way in a shorter amount of time. So that's one thing. The second thing is that what would happen if I was able to free up some time because I'm working in a streamlined way? And this may surprise you, but what if I could find a hobby? I don't have hobbies. And that has just been a light bulb for me recently. I think, I've been in this season of life raising young babies, and I don't know anyone, or, I don't know that a lot of us who have young children and have been in the thick of those early years have just a ton of hobbies. So I know that that's not, super uncommon. But I have realized that outside of my family, my home, and my work, I really don't have activities or hobbies. And the ones that I have had previously, things like walking, exercising, those things have really, really fallen off of the schedule or I have no capacity for those things anymore. And I really need to get that back. So, one of my reasons in being willing to take medication again and be accurately dosed is to be able to find some margin in my days and add some hobbies or some like time to enjoy things that I love back into my life, which is not something I expected, I don't think, to come to the forefront of this. And then the last thing, and I don't know necessarily that these are shared in the right order, but if you are a leader or a founder, maybe this has come up for you too, is that I'm excited to have the clarity in my brain to be a better leader. And I think leaders who suffer from ADHD and who don't address it or allow help in this way really handicap themselves in leadership. And my business deserves a level of leadership right now that I've not been able to give it because of the way that I struggle in my brain. And my team deserves a level of leadership that I struggle giving because of what the inside of my brain looks like. And so when we have meetings or I'm having a conversation, it has been, just this giant brain dump. And if you've ever talked to someone who really, really struggles, that visual of a pencil drawing and they like draw a dot and then there's like a ton of scribble and like crazy staticky, scribbling around. And then eventually it turns into a bunny. If you've ever seen that image, that is what I think my communication has looked like for a long time as I'm trying to give direction, as I'm trying to process through creative, visionary type things when I'm talking about our client work. And so internally, I'm really excited to go back and explore what medicine looks like for me so that I can be a better leader, a better communicator. It can calm down the part of my brain that's moving 5 million miles an hour to give me enough clarity to be able to give my team that level of clarity. And that is something that I'm just really looking forward to how that evolves and develops. And I don't expect this to be a quick fix. I've got 36 or so years of experience in being this way and a very, very small amount of experience of having this medicine that's going to help my brain operate a little bit better. But I've already been able to see start to work and start to get better. And I can see that I think I can become a better and a clearer communicator in my leadership role. I don't know exactly, how long, what the journey looks like of how long does it take the brain to heal and to get out of this like fight or flight mode all the time, all the classic things of someone that struggles with ADHD, right? I don't know what that looks like yet. This is very, very early on in the journey, for me at least. But what I can tell you is that if you're someone who has been scared to consider this, I hope these are helpful questions to ask yourself or, just someone else's feedback from their own experience. I wanted to share it for that reason. And also, if you've ever had a bad experience like I did, that's probably the biggest reason that I wanted to share it because I didn't know that there were other options and also really customized options as it relates to the type of medicine you're on, the way that it is dosed, how much you're on. For me, I need like the tiniest, 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 like child size amount to work really, really well for me, which is shocking because I'm a 5'9", I'm a tall woman with a very, very debilitating level of ADHD. And so I'm sure that a provider in the past looked at me or talked to me for one single second and was like, yep, you're going to need a horse tranquilizer. And that's just not true. The way that my body is so sensitive to it, it turns out I just need a tiny amount to really have a massive, massive positive effect without having to experience all of the negative ones that I did in the past. So, this is likely not the topic that you were expecting for this week, but I wanted to share it here and I wanted you to have this as a tool and a resource if you're someone who struggles the way that I do. And I'm excited, really, really excited to see what comes on the other side of this journey for me. I'll keep you posted. I share some of this on social media every now and then, and especially for founders and business owners and leaders who struggle in this way. I think this is an important conversation to have, and it's one that I'm willing to share. And so I'll keep you up to date on how this goes. And the positives that come from it. If I find things that I struggle with and need to change or make adjustments to, I'll share that part along the way as well. But from here, I'm excited to get back into the content that is really created for the overwhelmed founder who needs clarity in their business, and to keep delivering that to you in a way that can serve you right where you are and meet you there and help you get clarity. That's the journey that's ahead of us. And also some really fun conversations and guests on their way as well. So there's a little peek behind the curtain for you today. I hope that whether this is a Friday or a Wednesday or whatever day you're listening to this on, that if this is something you've struggled with too, that this is encouraging to you, and that you can ask yourself the question, could this potentially not be so hard? Could it be easier? Can you find some tools to help you with that? And happy to be an open book about my experience. So cheers. I'll see you next time. If you're waiting for permission, if you're waiting for perfect, if you're waiting to feel ready, don't forget, ready, fire, aim. I'll see you next time. Ready, Fire, Aim is brought to you by Endeavor, where we equip overwhelmed founders to build brands that actually generate the impact and revenue they're capable of. If your strategy needs to catch up with your vision, head to endeavorbranding.com to book a call with us. We're ready to meet you where you are and help your brand and business get to the next level.